All right. I'm gonna get comfortable for this one. This is my this is my comfy way of sitting. Yeah. Explains why I get sciatica sometimes. Anyway, yeah. D&D. So I've only been playing D&D for about 2 years now, and I've been in a total of 4 campaigns. And just as part of this whole backing up my life thing that I'm on at the moment, I wanted to kind of go back over some of the campaigns that I've been a part of, some of the characters that I've run, some of the things that I learned from those campaigns, and try and put into my own D&D campaigns that I run myself as a DM. And so to start with, really, I have to go way back to 2021. So coming out of the whole lockdown, we were finally allowed out to see other people. And, I kind of was looking around at my life at the time, and I wasn't feeling very happy with where things were. The fact was, of course, I was working from home now. Everyone's working from home. I have a wife that loves me. I have 2 children that love me. Didn't really have any friends. I spent 10 years of my life living in another country, came back to the UK. Don't really have any friends left here. And so I realized that my entire life was basically just work and family. And when you're working from home, that work and family is all in the same place, in the same, 4-bedroom house. And you're like, I don't have a life, So I was it was that phase where they were finally opening up the country, and they said, you can start to meet other people again. And for a long time, I'd kind of seen D&D from a distance and really liked it as an idea, and thought, I think I'd like playing that, I used to watch people like Spoonie and Pro Jared, and they would do they would play a lot of D&D, and they would do these YouTube videos where they would just talk about the sessions that they'd run. And I used to always find it really interesting hearing these stories of what they'd gone through and what they'd done on their campaigns. I thought, wow, that's so cool. I even actually purchased the D&D rulebook. Didn't have anyone to play it with, but I've owned it since like 2015, and I would just kind of look through it and read it and be like, whoa, there's a lot of rules here. I'm not quite sure I get it. And then just kind of put it to one side. I still think that's mainly a fault of how it's written. The actual rules themselves are really simple. It's just roll a d20 and add the appropriate modifier. Sometimes you get advantage on the roll. You roll 2 dice and pick the highest. Sometimes you get disadvantage on the roll. You roll 2 dice, you pick the lowest. The rules are really, really simple. I don't know why they overcomplicate things. I would love to get my hands on the editor of these books and just be like, guys, why do you start writing the Dungeons Master's Guide with a complete breakdown of the entire material universe and all the different planes of existence? Why don't you just start with how to run the game? Guys, this is not the way to write a rule. Anyway, though, the point is, I was very lucky that in the town where I live, there was a comic book shop, and they were starting to advertise that they were kind of opening up, of course, and starting to allow people back into the shop. And they had a Discord server. I was completely new to Discord at the time, never used it before, but I made an account, logged in, and there was a kind of a server on there which was like #looking-for-group. And someone just happened to post on there they were looking for a group to play with. And I just chimed back and said, hey, I'm also looking for a group. Let's make a group together. And this guy, his name was Carl. He was from South Africa, and he just come over, and he was now living here. And he said, cool, let's find some more people to join. And so we just put out a call on this little looking for group Discord server, and we found a couple of other people that came along. And I was basically like reaching out and organizing this whole thing because, you know, I talked with this guy, Carl, and I told him, like, I'm completely new to D&D. I've never played it before. He said, oh, I'm not new to it. I've played it before. So I said, oh, maybe you can be DM. And he was like, yeah, maybe if no one else wants to, I can do it. I was like, great. He's like, I've never been a DM before, though. I was like, that's fine. Let's go find some other people. And so we worked out among ourselves, you know, what sorts of days were appropriate. And then I was actually reaching out and DMing anybody who showed the slightest interest and being like, hey, I noticed you liked that comment we wrote. Do you want to join our group? And we did actually manage to get a group together. There were 4 players and the DM. And as I say, he was completely new to DMing. And so he decided that he would just run the kind of starter module, which is fine for me because I was completely new to D&D myself, as was one of the other people on the team. So 2 of us were completely new to D&D. 2 of the other people in the group were kind of old hands. They'd been doing it for a while, but none of them had done Dragon of Icespire Peak. And so we said, hey, let's run Dragon of Icespire Peak. Wonderful, good stuff. So we went away. We had a session 0, which we did over Discord, just to kind of meet and find out about each other. And we talked about, you know, what sorts of characters would work, sort of rules, what goes, what doesn't go. I had no opinions whatsoever in anything. I was just happy to be a part of things. And, you know, like I say, the reason why I wanted to do this whole thing in the first place was because primarily I wanted to make friends. I didn't have any friends. And so I wanted to meet people and get to know them. So I was very keen that we, you know, find out a bit about each other, just not just in the game. How do we want to run D&D? What do we think about PvP? No, sod that. What do you do for a living? Where do you live? Favorite type of pasta? What are your thoughts on Zelda? I don't know. So anyway, I was doing that, and Carl was doing the whole actual session 0 thing. And along the way, he gave us the kind of hook for things. Now, I have actually briefly looked at Dragon of Icespire Peak since then. It's a very basic module. Basically, it sets you up in a town, which is your base, and from there you can take various small quests in the nearby area. And along the way, you complete these quests. And I think the idea is that you hear rumors or you get sightings along the way of a dragon in the area, and the tension slowly builds up until eventually maybe you see the dragon, and then I think at the end, of course, you would then fight the dragon. It covers a good, you know, 10 levels of in-game playing. It seems like a very straightforward module. I haven't read it in any depth, but I do know that the place where Carl decided to start us was not the starting point of the actual module itself. I think the way that I've read it in the module, you start off just arriving at this town, which is your base of operations. The way that he started it is actually in the city of Neverwinter, where he put out a call. There was this kind of call to action, this letter that our characters had received, which said, "Dear reader, we are looking for skilled persons to join the newly established Adventurers Guild of Neverwinter. We have identified that you possess latent abilities to become a new member of the Adventurers Guild. If you are interested in joining our guild, please present this letter to Venthir at our guild in Neverwinter. Safe travels, the Adventurers Guild." Very straightforward call to action, and our characters then met in the first session, arriving at this Adventurers Guild in Neverwinter, and you know, meeting, forming as a party, and then setting off on our way. And it went really, really well. I was playing the part of Professor Erksbane, who was an elderly human cleric who spent his entire life at a university teaching students, and he'd never really seen much of the world. So he was very, very learned, very intelligent, but a little bit naive to the real way of things, and quite scholarly and lecture-like. And because he was an old man, I'd completely min-maxed his build. So basically his dexterity and strength were both at -1, and his intelligence, wisdom, and charisma were both like fairly good. So yeah, he was a very weird build for a first character, but I did like him a lot. And I just said, because everyone was describing their characters, and so I just said, hey, he looks like Bernie Sanders. Everyone likes that one. So there you go, Bernie Sanders, the cleric. You know, he had this vibe of just thinking that he knew better than everybody else. Kind of being suspicious of magic in general, because he's the sort of he came from a background of scholarly learning where he feels everything should be understandable. If you just gather enough data and you just learn things enough and you study things enough, everything should be understandable. There's nothing in the world that should be beyond mortal comprehension. And the fact that there are things in the world which are, a wizard did it, you know? He just, it completely irks him. So that's Professor Irksbane.
Yes, and he kind of talks like this all the time, you know? This was his way of talking. And funny story, you know, actually, this voice that I put on for Professor Irksbane, it actually started out life as a voice that I put on for one of my daughter's toys. It was a little hand puppet, and I called him Professor Catus because he was a cat, and he looked very scholarly, so I called him Professor Catus, and he would talk like this all the time. And I liked the voice, and I seemed to be able to just do it for as long as you wanted. And so I said, oh, if I wanted to transfer this voice into D&D, what sort of character would it fit? And that's where it came from. So this is sometimes how I write characters. I come up with the voice first, and then I fit a character to the voice, and then the build of, like, is that a fighter or a warlock or a paladin, that comes very, very last. I know a lot of people front end things and they say, I want to play as a rogue, I want to play as a wizard. But I was like, I want to play as someone who talks like this. Who could that be? And of course you're thinking, well, it'd probably be a wizard. No, I do not want to be a wizard. That is too obvious. I will be cleric. And along with me, there were two people who were kind of old hands at the game. One of them was playing this very silent, this giant of a man, huge colossus creature, clad in black armor, speaks in a very deep voice. I am Legion. Just talking like this. Very rarely speaks. And he's just a big old piece of muscle. And then we had Volby, who was a human warlock, covered in bandages. So you couldn't see any of his actual features. They were hidden beneath bandages. And he was very funny about those bandages. You know, he hated it if he got wet, you know, and he was always very particular that they had to be just so, but no one ever knew what was underneath them. And joining us at the table was another newcomer to the game. I'm really glad I wasn't the only newcomer there. And he was playing a rogue called Ragnar Lighthand, who was a half-elf rogue. Very, very typical rogue, really. That there wasn't really much, you know, to say about it. It was very by the book. The thing that made it the funniest was just the way that he played the rogue, because it was just this completely reckless character. Like the first, like I said, the whole party gets together at the beginning, and we start having drinks, and he just decides to drink an entire keg, and so straight away, you know, he's rolling constitution saves to see if you know, how drunk he is. Does he have a hangover? He did have a hangover, so, and that was affecting his performance the next day. Things like this. That was how he played his character. I did actually, at the time I was like, why are you doing that? But looking back, it was a lot of fun. So that was the group as we started out. Very, very interesting dynamic. And as I say, we started off traveling to this town of Vandalin. We had to deliver some mining provisions in a cart, although we did take a peek at those mining provisions along the way. And it was rather egg-like. Dragon egg-like, one might say. But anyway, so we were traveling together, and along the way, we were ambushed by some goblins, which now I've looked back on it, I believe is the exact first encounter, not from Dragon of Icespire Peak, but from the other starter module, The Lost Mines of Vandalin. So I think what he's done is basically combined together two starter modules. Unfortunately,
after this very strong start, I loved that beginning. I thought we had a really good first session. You know, bit of role playing at the beginning, getting together, bit of combat on the road. We fought some wolves as well before we were ambushed. It was a lot of fun. And unfortunately, though, in between that first session and the second session, one of the members of our party broke his leg, and he ended up in hospital. He was quite a big guy, and so he ended up in hospital for quite a long time. And so there was a bit of uncertainty to start off with if we would actually continue playing or not. In the end, what we just decided to do was to try and do a kind of hybrid thing where we had this person that was in hospital kind of dialing in over Discord, and we, most of us were in person, and we just had this one person dialing in over Wi-Fi, which kind of worked because he was playing this silent giant of a character who didn't really need to roleplay much. He just needed to kind of hit things at the appropriate time. But looking back on it, I think we probably should have just said to the guy, like, look, we've only had one session. You focus on getting yourself better. And just, like, soft kicked him out of the group, because that hybrid way of working didn't really work. And the fantastic dynamic that we had in the first session, it kind of fell away, which was a shame. We were actually joined, though. We did get one more player at the table. We had a human ranger who was basically just playing a self-insert character. It was literally himself as a ranger. That was his character. There was literally just one dimension to this character. It's just, yeah, I'm playing myself as a ranger. I've got a bow and arrow. That's it. Sometimes that's all you need, right? You just, it's wish fulfillment fantasy. So, yeah, we went into this, into the second session and third session. And the campaign did continue for a little bit longer. We went on a few missions together. A lot of fun had along the way, a lot of really good moments. And unfortunately, though, it kind of petered out after about 7 sessions. That's how many we had. And the main reason why it petered out is basically because of this hybrid way of playing. It just wasn't working for anybody. To be fair, I didn't mind it too much. And I think one of the other people in the party didn't mind it, but there were 2 people at the table that absolutely hated that hybrid way of playing, and it just took them out of the game. They weren't enjoying themselves. And so we just made the decision. At the same time, there was another call going out over that same Discord server of looking for group, or I think it was over Facebook actually. Someone else was starting up their own homebrew campaign, and so 2 of the people in the party just jumped ship over there. And so at the same time, I was just like, well, let's just call it then. Let's just stop it. Maybe we'll go back to it one day. Maybe not. So yeah, 7 sessions. It doesn't sound very long. We only got to level 3. So you might think that that it wasn't a very good campaign, but actually, au contraire, it remains a really bright memory for me. And to this day, it has one of my favorite sessions of D&D ever. We were taking part in a quest which we were given in Vandalen, which was the Dwarven Excavation quest. Dwarf prospectors found ancient dwarven ruins in the mountains southwest of here and have begun an archaeological dig for treasure and relic. They need to be warned that a white dragon has moved into the area, take the warning to them, and then return to Townmaster Harbin Wester to collect a reward of 50 gold pieces. Really straightforward. We're just going there, giving a message, coming back. And it was really, really cool because when we actually got there at the end of one session. And I mentioned before, our rogue was very reckless. And so my professor character was taking his time to kind of like look around, get the lay of the land. He was casting Detect Magic. He's looking around, investigating the ruins, kind of looking around at things. And actually, to be fair, I was able to really use that to my advantage because a lot of the tunnels in this place had kind of collapsed, but I was like, hang on a second, this room looks kind of symmetrical. So if there's a tunnel on this side of the room which has collapsed, is there a tunnel on this side as well? I looked over, and sure enough, when I investigated, there was a secret door there. So I was able to feel really intelligent because I was able to do this. And so I'm looking around doing this, like figuring out the lay of the land. And in the meantime, our rogue, you only live once, he was just like Leroy Jenkins into this temple, gets completely attacked by a load of like oozes, narrowly manages to escape, runs down a side passage, sets off a whole bunch of traps. He's just like going around the whole temple while the professor's standing there like, I believe there might be a tunnel up this way, yes. And in the meantime, he's like setting off all these traps. So that was quite funny. And so the next session starts. And this was something that I always liked to do, is when I play the game, I want people to be, paying an interest to my character. I want people to be role-playing with me. But some people kind of need to be drawn out of their shells. And also, everyone wants to talk about themselves and do that as well. So my feeling was, you know what, if I just choose one person in the party every single session that I'm going to go to and talk to and interact with. Every session I will choose someone in the party. This is something I decided really early on. I said every session I'm going to choose someone and do a bit of a one-on-one interaction with them. So for example, with Valdi, the guy with the bandages, in one session I went to him and I said to him, oh Valdi, I hope this isn't rude to say, but I am a cleric. I have some healing magic. I don't know where my magic comes from exactly, but I do seem to be able to heal people. I've noticed you've got these bandages. If there's anything that I can do to help you, please let me know. And that was a really great interaction then, because it gave him a chance to kind of roleplay a bit with me, just show that his character didn't really want to talk about the bandages, but he was clearly touched by this gesture and moved by it. And we were able to get closer together as characters as well. And it was a very natural thing, because of course, my character being a cleric would offer to heal someone's wounds, so it was a very natural thing. So like I say, every session I was trying to choose someone else in the party and do something one-on-one with them. I don't think I ever did with the ranger. He was the only person I didn't, because he was just a self-insert character that was just there for the fun. But everyone else at the table I had some one-on-one time with at some point. And in this particular session, my favorite session ever, it was the turn of Ragmar, the rogue. And as I said, in the previous session, he just run around setting off all these traps. And the session before that was when we were ambushed on the road by the goblins. There was a cart in the middle of the road, clearly a trap, whereas I was sitting back like, okay, do I see anything around me? Do I perceive any tracks or anything? He was just like, I go straight towards the cart and start looking through the treasure. He didn't care, he was just there for the lulz. And of course he got ambushed, he got knocked down. And so my character chose this moment in this temple to kind of lecture him. So at the very beginning of the session, I said, before we do anything else, can I'm going to go to your character during our long rest. And I'm going to just, say to him, you're clearly a very talented rogue. You've clearly got some abilities that, we've been asked to work together by the same group of people. But you, sir, are reckless. If you were one of my students, I would fail you on the spot. You run into danger without any sort of consideration. What if I were not around to heal you? You would be dead. So I was lecturing him. And during the course of this lecture, of course, he was role-playing things back to me, just like, yeah, well, you don't know me, you don't know what I'm capable of. He was just like this. The Valdi, the character with the bandages, decided to chime in, and he was just like pretending that he was being woken up by the noise, and he was like, "Don't worry, Professor, we'll take." He spoke with this accent for some reason. He was like, "Don't worry, we'll take care of things. You know, we'll all keep an eye on Ragma. Okay, just go to sleep. You're keeping us awake." Fine. The professor decides to let things slide. So the next day, we're continuing to explore around the dungeon. We go through a few more places. We do a bit more fighting. We excavate a bit of another tunnel. And we find ourselves in a chamber at the end. We walk into the chamber, and there in front of us is a statue. A statue holding a gigantic gem in its hands, as if holding it out towards us. And because of this conversation that I'd had before, I don't know if it would have happened otherwise. It was so perfect. Just as one, everybody at the table just turns to look at the rogue. And the rogue is like, I run straight towards it. And we were like, nope. And we just immediately, as one, like, we grab him and tackle him and try and hold him in place. There was a bit of PvP then. He was like, well, I slap you with my glove. And you know, people were not too happy about that. There was a bit of like tension there. In the meantime, Professor goes over to this statue to explore it in a bit, you know, detect magic, looking around it. Curious. DM, could you tell me what god is represented here? And what do I know about this god? And blah, 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 blah. The rogue rolls a successful dexterity check or something, gets out of the grapple, runs towards the gem, and grabs it. Upon grabbing the gem, the statue then explodes, one-shotting the professor. So the professor is down on the ground, knocked out. Ragmar once again grappled by everybody. And this time everyone's like, oh, for crying out loud, you've knocked out the professor. You know, this is exactly what he was talking about, you know? So they decide to restrain him. And at this point, I need to mention that the big, muscly, silent member of our party that I mentioned, turned out he was actually a giant walking skeleton that had been reanimated post-death. He was playing one of the Van Richter races of Redead, and he was just a giant skeleton. And we asked, would there be enough room? I am a large creature. Is there enough room inside my chest cavity? Open up my rib cage. Is there enough room in here to store a medium-sized humanoid? The DM, bless his heart, he decided to rule that yes, there was. And this is one thing I would say the DM, he was new to D&D DMing, and he thought very little of his abilities because, you know, he wasn't one with flavor text or descriptions, and he wasn't particularly great at improv. But he was very cool at playing the game. And he was really good at allowing the party to thrive, you know, which is such a valuable skill and one that I lack. You know, sometimes the DM, their role is just to get out of the way and let the party do their thing. You know, we're all there to have fun together. Sometimes the DM needs to have a heavy hand in things. Play the character, role play the NPC. Sometimes he just has to step back and let things happen. And that's what he did there. And to be fair, that's probably a ruling that I myself wouldn't have made. I would have said, hang on a second. A Redead is actually, rules as written, it's a medium-sized creature. You cannot restrain a medium-sized creature inside another medium-sized creature. Sorry, no. Rules as written, not allowed. Sounds cool, no. But I would have denied my party the incredible shenanigans that came next, because he said, sure, you can put a half-elf inside this giant skeleton character. Into the ribcage it went. We tie it shut, put the breastplate on top. So at this point, the whole party is very annoyed and frustrated with each other, and they're like, "Oh, bloody stupid gem! We've got this gem in our hands now. We're just carrying it out." And we've revived the professor, but I'm limping along on just a couple of HP. I'm not, obviously I'm quite injured. And as we're leaving the mine, we suddenly hear boom, 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 like war drums approaching, and we look out, and we see a tribe of orcs coming up to the mine. Orcs that have been scared away from their home by this dragon. Their home has been attacked or destroyed, or their people killed, whatever. They have fled here to try and find a safe harbor. They want to come into this mine so that they can get away from the dragon. We want to leave the mine. We come face to face with each other. There's the professor on just a couple of HP. All of us have sustained some sort of damage because we had fights in there. And we've got our rogue restrained inside the chest plate of another character. We are in no position to have this fight, right? And so we try and talk our way out of it. None of us talks Orcish. And unfortunately, the ranger, now I mentioned before, he was a one-dimensional character. His backstory, such as it was just one sentence long. His backstory was, I hate orcs. And so the professor is like trying to talk everyone down, and he's like, okay, we're just leaving. You can have this place. It's absolutely fine. We mean no harm. We'll just slip on by. You can have this. He just notches an arrow, fires it at one of the orcs. Immediately, rolling initiative, everyone attacks. So there's us trying to defend ourselves. There's the orcs coming at us. Oh my gosh, it was the best fight ever, because the professor, I rolled a nat 20 and I took out one of the orcs with a guiding bolt, and then the DM again ruling really cool, because the rogue character said, you know what, I'm currently inside the chest cavity of this of Legion, right? Yes, you are. Would it be safe to say that I'm hidden from the orcs in this place? Well, yes, I suppose you are hidden. They can't see you. I see. And given the fact that I'm inside a skeleton, would there not be gaps between the ribs of the rib cage? Gaps that maybe I could just, jab, 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 or, fire a crossbow through? Oh, why, I suppose that's fine. Sneak attack damage every single time. So yeah, despite the fact that we were in no position to have this fight, we cleaned up. It was such a good battle. And in the meantime, the DM decided to throw more characters. So it's like because we were creating such a ruckus, some oozes appeared out of the woodwork and started attacking us, and so we're then being pincer movement. We've got the orcs attacking us on one side, we're defending ourselves from behind on the other side. It's just carnage going on all around us, and in the end we killed them all and looted their bodies. And in the wake of that, we need another long rest, and so we're all sitting together at the end. And once again, the professor goes to Ragmar and he's basically now Ragmar, I hope that today maybe taught you a bit of a lesson, But you've also taught us a lesson, because it's, the sneak attack damage you were doing inside that ribcage. It's true that maybe there are some hidden depths to you after all that I wasn't aware of. It was just a really great moment, because as a party, we all kind of, in that moment, took collective responsibility for Ragmar, and we were all like, okay, you know, yeah, he's insane and just like runs through things like he's playing Takeshi's Castle or something. But you know what? We're a party together, and that was the session. And to this day, it is the perfect session of D&D because it had such a nice shape to it. It starts with a clear beginning, with the role play, with me talking to Ragmar. There's the moment of him doing something stupid, incredible combat, learning the lesson, and thus at the end, forging greater alliances as a party together. Perfect shape over the course of just 3.5 hours. I wish they were all like that. It was perfect. So yeah, that's my memories of Dragon of Icespire Peak. And, you know, we had a lot of fun playing together. That group of people, with the exception of the guy who played the Ranger. He was Italian and he went back to Italy shortly afterwards, so I haven't really seen him since. But everybody else at that table, I've played other campaigns with. And to this day, 2 of the guys, the one that was in hospital, he's not in hospital anymore. He's back out now and he's fine. So him and the guy playing the rogue, Ragmar, we are still playing together to this day. And in fact, the guy in hospital is now the DM of the Dragon's Dogma campaign that we're playing through, which you can maybe watch the videos about here below. I guess the fact that we're still together suggests that, you know, we obviously struck on something quite good. You know, we got quite a good dynamic. We like playing together, and I think it was those early sessions that really helped to solidify that dynamic together.